Welcome to the bridge, Wezi.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited and honored to be invited to be part of the bridge, and hopefully I can, reciprocate the joy that I receive from our community and the educator community
Yeah.
back into this space. So appreciate the platform.
Absolutely. So, Wezi Thindwa, you have a fantastic backstory, a global backstory that maybe people don't know all about you. And so, let's start with just you. Where did you come from? How did you get to where you're at?
Sure.
Where are you? All that good stuff.
Yeah. The older I get, the more I feel like it's increasingly global-ish. Because I am from Malawi, born in Malawi, and my family moved from there when I was relatively young, when I was very young. And we moved from Malawi to California actually
Oh,
for about a year, and then from California to England.
wow.
And I was in England until I was 14,
Wow.
going on 15, and moved to the States. It was a mid-year move, international move.
That's not
So I
disruptive in your
joined high
teenage
school.
years.
I was in year 10 in England, so I was in ninth grade here. So I came halfway through ninth grade year
Wow.
from English schools over to here. So I didn't spend much time in Malawi. I was in Malawi. We lived in Malawi until I was
Okay.
3. Well, I was 3. I was, 3 years. But something that I really came to appreciate and cherish my parents for doing is when we were growing up in England, um, and just trying, my parents would try to just make do, find their way. My dad was working,
Mm-hmm.
my mom was home. And as an immigrant family, tried to keep things together. So they said we're not big spenders. We're not going to have, lots of gifts and parties. It was just me and my two brothers. I've got two brothers. I'm right in the middle. And so we didn't, go on those like 1 week or 2 week
Right.
holidays really or do anything like that. But what they committed to was that every other summer we were going to spend the whole summer back home in
Oh,
Malawi.
wow.
So, I feel like without that, I would feel very
Hmm.
disconnected from my homeland.
Yeah.
But because of that, we were able to, it was always home. Like, we're going back home in
Wow.
next year or whatever it was. And then after moving to the States, I made
Mm-hmm.
trips, kind of solo trips. But my family was increasingly scattered,
Right.
as we were getting older. Like somebody was going over here to work, someone's over in China, someone's over in
Wow.
India. We've got family in the UK still. And so, but always trying to stay very connected with them, which I do feel that way. And so, yeah, so that's why I still feel, I'm saying
Yeah.
global-ish. Like, I didn't have that many formative years necessarily in Malawi, more in
Mm-hmm.
England, but it's still definitely very much like I feel very much like I've got three homes because I've now
Oh,
been in the States for all of my
right.
adulthood,
Right.
and yeah, so Virginia, we moved to Virginia. I was in Virginia, graduated from Virginia High
Wow.
School, went to a Virginia State College, worked in Virginia public schools, and then moved to New York City last year. So
Yeah.
definitely feeling very Virginia as well.
That's well, and New York is such like an epicenter of global identity too. And so it makes me
Yeah.
wonder like given your role at Adobe and knowing what I know that Adobe is growing their own community and to be more focused on global bringing everyone together. Like do you see that like whether or not it was meant to be, do you see how all like do you make connections between like how you grew up and how you are living your life now with family all over the world? Like do you see that impacting the way you support educators now?
I think it's always been something that I've had an affinity to is connecting in immigrant spaces, in international spaces, in um, um, just often growing up feeling very othered as well.
Right.
Like being part of community or forming community has always been something that felt kind of natural for me to do. Is because like I actually had to work at doing that. Just like survival and making friends and connections and you know all of that. So part of the Adobe for All campaign of Adobe being such a global brand, it feels if I feel right at home in that type of environment. And even as an educator, I had the best practicum experience anyone could have asked for. I was very unsure about going into teaching, but I felt like very called to it in a way. I was very close to my grandmother on my father's side, and she was a teacher, and she was very influential in my life. But and also my mom's side, her father was an educator, and we got several other educators in the family, and it felt like something that was always kind of there, but I didn't necessarily want to do it. So I think I'm going to become a lawyer. I want to do other things, or I'll be an athlete. And then, but it was just there was just something magnetic about teaching. And when I got to college, it was like every job that I've had, like starter job or jobs that I've taken on my own, have been with kids. I was doing I was working in a gym nursery. I was babysitting a ton, and I was working in camps and things like that. So as a teenager, and I really enjoyed that. I really felt like I was doing something impactful. Then I got to college and I was like, I don't want to be a teacher though. Like I think I'm good with that. And so one of my advisors was just like, there's like a probationary period almost with the School of Education, and so you can take some classes and then see if you want to continue and see if they even accept you kind of deal. So I did, and I was all over the map, and I had a good problem when I was in college. And the reason why I call it a good problem is because I got to college realizing I was interested in so many things, and that hadn't been my experience in high school. In high school, I felt like, what is there for me? What, I don't know. I don't know what my path is in this world. And I got to college and I was like, oh, there are a lot of us. So, I loved it. I loved every class that I took in the School of Education, and I had the most amazing cooperating teacher during my practicum, and I was in a public school district in Charlottesville. And this was a teacher. She'd been teaching for 10 years, and she was previously a lawyer and became a teacher. And we had a very international population. There was a refugee camp nearby, so the school was pulling from a lot of students from the camp. And she was so thorough and so supportive of my growth. So, and she was direct, and she was a straight shooter. Like she would say it was gradual release for me. And I remember the very first lesson where she said, "You've got this one on your own." And I spent hours and hours and hours planning for it. And I was so nervous, even though I'd been with these students for months and or weeks at that time. And I taught the lesson, and it felt a little better at the back end than it did at the front end. And when we debriefed, I remember she asked me, the first question was, how do I think it went? And then she said, the students spent a lot of time cutting the scissors. And we both looked at each other, and I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And she was just like, you didn't plan for that? And I was like, I didn't plan for that. And so we're having this conversation, and she's saying to me about, like, even in focus on the details and the minutiae, and making sure students have this great experience, what truly matters here, you know, and also where are the students and what's going to detract from what really matters here. And so I had this activity for them, and I just didn't even factor in that I'm having them cut out the shapes that they were going to use to do the learning, and that consumes so much of the learning. So we had this conversation about, you know, the academic learning time in a class when you are planning. And so that's just an example of how honest and but also impactful our conversations were. And pick, you know, like, this is how much time you spend on that. Was that proportionate to how much time the students were actively thinking and critically thinking about this activity? Like, who was doing the work here? You
And
know,
are we assessing scissor cutting? Is this what we're doing today?
Exactly. Because a lot of energy and support was given to scissor.
Which is a skill.
It is a skill, but it is with third graders. They knew how to do it. And it just took so long because I gave them tiny shapes.
But here, you know what I want to say about that? Like, I used to have this poster up in my classroom, and it said, if I tell you, it's in your ear. If you learn it, it's in your head. And I feel like you had to experience that. Like, look at, it's still so real. Like, it's such a core memory for you. Like, you're telling that story now.
It's such a core memory.
You learned that.
It's such a core memory. It's such a core memory, and which is why she was such a great teacher for me. And because she was all about, did every student get the optimal learning experience that this was intended for them? Every student. I don't care what they're coming with. Some of them have zero English. Some of them need additional support with, you know, maybe it's intellectual difficulties. Some of them might be coming with fine motor skill issues. So you've got a few kids that didn't eat this morning.
Right.
So how are they getting what they need?
Oh my
you
gosh.
know? And because I was seeing where my faults were and where I wasn't reaching, but constantly like targeting and addressing that thing, and I had a partner doing it with me and being eyes, another set of eyes. I left like, I'm so empowered, and I can't tell you how many people said, don't teach third grade in Virginia your first year teaching. Like, they have all the state standards. It's just a dump of those
like,
tests.
why?
Those standards of learning tests at the end of the year. They have 4 of them. At the time, they had 4 of them. At the end of the year, it was their first year
Got
having
it.
that. And so, you know, going from second grade to third grade is already a big jump. And then working with third graders, knowing that there's...
Like, the stakes were so high, right?
This such high stakes at that time. And so they're like, as a first year teacher, it's really overwhelming. You know, it can lead to a lot of burnout. And I was just like, challenge accepted. I had the best third graders. And so I taught third grade, and I stuck at third. I was just like, nobody's telling me not to teach third grade. I love third grade. My cooperating teacher too. She was just like, we're doing third grade. You know.
Awesome. Do you still talk to that cooperating teacher? Do you have a relationship?
You know, we did on Facebook, and then I dropped Facebook like years and years ago, and then we lost touch. And her name is Mary Plank, by the way. So Mary Plank.
Oh my God, I want to find her.
Mary Plank in Charlottesville, Virginia.
I love it.
You are an absolute star in my life, and and the students that we had that year was such a wonderful class. Like, we had great rapport with their parents as well, and we had a couple of students who were in America for the first time that year. Like, that was their first year in the States. Quite a few of them, not necessarily from refugee background, but other places too. So I just but going back to your question, that I really veered off of that, but just having a global community has always been something very important to me. And also, my parents worked in development. Like, the reason why we moved from Malawi is my dad was working in international development. And so, like, those are, you know, dinner table talks is, how are we making the world a better place? So that's that's kind of been, yeah, that's kind of
It's like what you know.
in my bloodline almost. It's like it's part of me to think in that
Mm-hmm.
way, and to see people, beyond the current land that we are sharing, but like what else has brought us here together.
Yeah.
And so community building was really a core focus of
Yeah.
mine. And when I became a teacher, I was sweating that first day of school because I was just like, not everything
Yeah.
is ready. I need to, all the things. And my friends who know me know would probably say like, you'd still be like that
Mm-hmm.
today. And I'm like, yes, I have a little scatterbrain, and I do a little too much sometimes. But it was important for me that everybody feels
Yeah.
welcome to space. I know that sounds very cliche, but as a student that didn't often feel
Yeah.
most of my teachers didn't pronounce my
Oh,
name correctly
I
growing up.
literally,
My first name is four
yeah,
letters.
girl, right. And I literally just wrote a blog post about the importance of saying names and saying them correctly. Like
Yeah.
it's essential.
Yep. Yep. So,
Wow.
yeah, that's just it. It feels very comfortable for me, and it's a mission that I get behind Adobe for All, and creating the future. And I just, especially our team, like we want to inspire and empower the next generation of lifelong
Right.
creators. And I feel like that's like the core of teaching, is like inspiring and empowering the next generation, right?
It's not
And
hard to get behind that.
it's not hard to get. It's not like, if you're not behind that, like really, what are you behind? And so, the mission of teaching in general always felt like a very, like, no brainer
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
I'm doing something for the greater good, therefore I can, you know, I'll take whatever comes with it. But also, there's a dark side to that mentality too, is that sometimes it's like, because you are doing work that's also service
Yeah.
work, that you are also accepting less than really what you should accept
Yeah.
sometimes. And that can lead to that dissatisfaction,
Totally.
and even beyond that, just the burnout, and just kind of feeling taken advantage of as a teacher, when you are giving and giving
Yeah.
and giving, and you're not, like, there's not a whole lot that's being poured back
Right.
into you beyond the intrinsic motivation that you get from working with students and seeing them grow, and
Yeah.
being a partner in their life journey as well. So it's definitely a fine line to walk, and it's okay if it's a job as well for a lot
Yeah.
of people. Like, it's, oh, I might not feel called to teaching, but I'm really good at it, and I work well with students, and it's paying my bills, and I get to get up
Yeah.
and do something good every day. Like, that's
Totally.
fine. And not, I think sometimes it can feel like, if you're not doing something that necessarily feels like a calling, then what are you doing?
That's a
But
lot of
I
pressure
think
for
that's kind of
people,
a hard.
right?
So it's so much pressure. And I was actually just saying this to a friend of mine today. I was just like, the one thing that we all share in the human experience is that we change.
Yeah.
Like, people change, and therefore sometimes you might find yourself like your passion has extended, or that's changed, or you feel like your purpose is evolving, and it's just all part of the human
Totally. And there's some, like, talk about pressure. Like, I think educators get, because so many of us feel like it's a calling, then
Yep.
we end up putting this pressure on ourselves. We don't give ourselves permission to change. Like, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, you've lived it. I've lived it. We've been fortunate enough and strategic enough with decisions we've made and things we've said yes to that have opened up doors. And that, I don't think it's lucky, right? I think I think it's, like, I say strategic, but I mean it in, like, the softest way, because I didn't walk into all those opportunities, or, like, connect with people on Twitter, or start presenting because I was being quote unquote strategic. Like, but in retrospect, you realize, like, wow, that was all kind of happening, and it was all leading to something else.
Yes.
Yeah, and I really, there's something you said. There's lots of things you said, but I'm writing little notes down so I can bring them up. So the one thing I think's interesting is when you say like the teachers give so much and they're not often poured back into.
Hmm.
Something that I thought about, and I wonder what your take up on this is like leaders, like educational leaders, which many
Hmm.
teachers grow up to be. Um,
Hmm.
I think that not enough time is spent really thinking about what should be poured back in. Like as an example, like what fills Wezi
Yeah.
is not necessarily going to fill Cate, you know? And
Right.
sometimes it's money, but it's not always money, you know, and that's not always within
Hmm.
leaders' control. And so, like, have you ever come across, like, I don't know, is that something? I don't know what my question is, but I just kind of think about that. Like what needs to change or what needs to happen? Do we need to be voicing what fills us? Is that what teachers need to be hearing or what? I don't know.
I mean, that's a really great question and something and a consideration to have too. Um, I don't know what the answer is, but I can speak from experiences that I've had with I've been fortunate to be around a lot of really amazing
Mm-hmm.
leaders. Um, I was working with staff in many different schools, and so I've seen a lot, and I've also seen where leadership can really make some
Right.
missteps,
Even not attention.
intentional or
Exactly.
not exactly. And I think something that can really help to boost the morale and just general sense of empowerment with staff is when whatever it is that you're doing, are people coming feeling like I the work that I'm doing is important and the work that I'm doing is valued, because that type of sentiment, the type of sentiment that makes you feel good to wake up the next day and restart.
Yeah.
That's the longevity sentiment. That's the sentiment that makes people want to perform at their best. Um, and what factors into that and what contributes into that sentiment is visibility,
Mm.
is voice, is am I seen in what I'm doing, and also is my growth appreciated? Because there's a lot of times where we feel so nervous of making
Mm-hmm.
mistakes because everything is high stakes, right? You're working with students, like you're working with
Yeah.
lives. This is very important work. And then you've got somebody who's coming into your classroom maybe a couple times a year with a
Yeah.
checklist. And um, it can really cause a lot of self-doubt, or the sense that I actually need to perform at my best, when really that you're doing your best every
Right.
day. But it's how is my impact being seen, being valued, being understood? Like,
Yeah.
am I understood as a teacher and as a human being? Am I respected as a contributor in this greater vision and,
Yeah.
and mission for what we're doing in this space together, you know? And I know that sounds like kind of broad and general, but it's amazing how long you can do something over and over again and not realize that you have lost
Mm.
the passion and the desire to do that thing. Like, you can do it so robotically or automatically, but feel very empty inside while you're doing
Yeah.
it. And it's a very normal experience to have. You can also be energized, but you are having to draw on a lot of other
Yeah.
things for that
Yeah.
energy outside of what you're getting from the people that you're working with and the leadership around you. And I think um it's really important. But something that I've always valued as an instructional coach and in the work that I do now is like I want to see the work that's happening. How did you get here? Like what is it that, how did you bring yourself into this? What are you seeing as the fruits of this? Like, what are the challenges that you're seeing and experiencing? And walking into a classroom and, seeing students just excited to just learn something new. That's how it should be, right? Like, we should all feel very excited to be learning something new, even as teachers. When you have teachers who are coming to professional development, and this is actually... And this has happened, right? Teacher will sign in and then leave.
Oh,
let me just get my name.
Go to the bathroom and never come back.
Let me just. Right. It's like, it's a shared experience. It's just, if you are going into a space that says that holds the promise that you are here as a means to improve your work conditions, or the work that you're doing, or to get a better understanding of the work that we're asking you to do, or to have improvement, whatever it is. And you continually go into those places and you leave feeling worse than you did when you come in. Like, that's a larger problem. Totally. You should feel like, I want to get back in there right away and try this thing, or I know I have clarity now about how the thing that has really been bugging me, how it can stop bugging me, about what my instruction, or I know exactly how to use this particular tool now, which is holding me back, because if I don't know how to use it, I'm not feeling confident to teach my students to use it. So I do feel like this professional development is a really, really important opportunity to encourage and empower teachers. That you should come to professional development and feel professionally developed.
Okay, but what happens if they don't?
You should feel...
Is that their fault, or is that the presenter's fault, or is it, you know what I mean? Like, we both present.
Well, those are the data points we get. Yeah, a lot. And what are our feedback surveys?
I don't know. I don't get to see them.
I have been on teams where the feedback survey has been so thorough because we were part of it. Because we asked that same question, right? What if they don't get what they're supposed to get? How will we know?
Right.
And what are we going to do about it? And we need data for that. And so those conversations were really important in building the kind of surveys and intake forms to help us answer those questions. But a lot of people have a hard time with that, because those are hard questions that, it's like, very specifically, tell me how you think I did. Did I help facilitate your thinking today?
Yeah.
On a scale of 0 to 5. If it's a 0, like, I have what to do. I need to go somewhere and get professionally developed about that. But I have also completed surveys from workshops and trainings that I've been in that almost like a force feeding you into saying that, yes,
like fake positivity.
Yeah. That they don't necessarily want to hear any feedback about the person who was leading the training, or the person who designed the training. They just, like, kind of general feel good questions.
Safe, safe questions, right?
It's safe questions. And sometimes the underlying issue there is that people know that maybe I am supporting a program that is where I need to show that this program is worth having, and I want to keep my job. But ultimately, like, how do you continue to be effective and impactful if you're not getting the feedback from the people who you're supposed to be impacting?
Okay.
And honest feedback.
And how often do teachers get honest feedback like that? Right? And we're constantly, like, going back to what you said, we're constantly pouring out, we're constantly giving. And sometimes we get feedback from our students, like, or families, but, like, oftentimes that feedback is kind of layered, right? Like, there could be other factors that are being measured that you didn't necessarily ask for.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, talk about othering, right? That happens. And
Right.
you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry you had a bad day. And that then resulted in an email that is my negative feedback. So thank
Hmm.
you for that.
Hmm.
It, how do you, okay, how do you, Wezi, go from like, so you're in the classroom and now you're at Adobe. And I know we talked about this before we started
Hmm.
recording. And people ask you this, like, how do I get there? How do I get into edtech? Like, I really am
Yeah.
curious because part of what you were talking about is like the everyday challenges of being in the classroom, and you like beautifully reek of teaching. Like you are an educator, and you smell lovely. But but like, how did you make that choice? And like, I'm curious, like, how did you get there?
Yeah. I always feel like my journey is unconventional, but then it's like, but everybody's journey has unconventional aspects to it. We're all
Sure.
inherently unique, but um, there wasn't. If I could go back, there's a lot of things that I would do
Okay.
differently, and there are other things that I'm just kind of like, lucky you,
Yeah.
like I'm so grateful that I was in the right place in the right
Mm.
time for this opportunity, and um, I learned a couple of guiding philosophies early in my career that I feel like set me up to almost like be in the right place at the right time, because I'm not somebody who is naturally forthcoming. I don't always like speak up in a room. Like I was a relatively shy kid, and so part of the issue that I did have when I was learning to be a teacher was the fact that I couldn't even speak in front of people.
Mm.
And so the fact that I ended up spending the majority of my education career doing public speaking is so
Oh my
far
gosh.
from the
Wow.
reality that anyone could have seen from me, including myself, when I was a student in high school, college,
Wow.
because I just, NK, I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Like, I could not speak in
Wow.
front of people. I was taking a lot of seminars and courses. I was doing a lot of credits. And once I got to the seminar stages, like you have to
Yeah.
present a lot, and I couldn't do it.
Um,
I ran out of two presentations. I literally got up there, the words on the page started swimming, and I just
wow.
exited stage left. Um, and after the last time that happened, I had an intervention between the professor came and sat with me. She took me to the dean. The professor and the dean were like, "Let's get your dad on the phone." They put my dad on the phone, and the three of them. It was an
Wow.
intervention. Like, okay, what are we gonna do with this? The fact that you cannot speak
Wow.
in front of people. So I it was a physical reaction that I would
Yeah.
have to being seen and heard, and in a formal place. And so I had to really work. I worked really hard on that. And to this day, when I'm doing keynotes, like that is the most uncomfortable experience for me. And so I have my means and rituals that I
Okay.
go through to be able to get up there and do what I do. But I also am very grounded in knowing that I can I can have a positive impact when I do these things. So I hold on
That's
to
what kind
that,
of
right?
drives you
Because
and
a
pushes
lot of
through
the
it.
times,
Okay.
yeah, because it's the fear of like, what if, like there's an imposter syndrome,
Mm.
or what if like this isn't even gonna land, or whatnot. And
Hmm.
so what if I'm not gonna be good? What if I'm not gonna be good enough? And so I've had enough rehearsals in public speaking to
That's
know, and to
fascinating.
have some truths that can be self-evident enough for me to work through the mental anguish of like any thought that's coming to mind that speaks to worthiness. Like I've got a place for that, and then whatever's driving my nerves spatially, I've got I've got some tips and tricks for
Wow.
that. But I have to work very, very hard at it. And so in speaking to like my journey and getting
Yeah.
here, the where I was headed and my profile was not here. I had a lot of struggles, and even in the School of Education, as much as I was loving it, um, once I got to that the practicum, I was getting, the practice that I needed. But before that, it was like the speaking was really, really difficult for me before I had that practicum experience. And then the last thing was you had to take an exam at the end of it to get,
become a teacher,
to finalize your certifications. And I was not a good test taker, and I failed the university test for the School of Education.
This story, oh my gosh.
I failed the test. Mind you, I had received so much validation up until that point that I was going to be a good teacher, and I failed this test. I loved the courses I was taking. I was internalizing things, and I failed the test, and they said, you have a second opportunity to take it. I failed it again.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I'm not going to be a teacher. Like, that's it. My chances are done. And I was crushed. And then I get an email, I get a phone call, and there was a review board because one of the dean of students in the School of Education bought my case and was just like, there's no way we can let this person not become a teacher, so what are we going to do? And so when I say like time and place, like this was a professor who intimidated me, and I didn't realize that she'd even seen me in her class.
Gosh.
Like, she was like, whoa, kind of. And I only found out because I was asking. I was just like, wait, who did what? Like, why? And then they said, and we spoke to, I had a history professor. I was majoring in history, and he had asked me to be part of a board for curriculum globalization. I was just like, why did he ask me? I barely even speak in that class. And so, like, these were teachers, professors who had that thing where they were like, every student has something. Like, what is your thing? What is like, and I didn't realize it because I just was like in my own bubble of nerves, thinking like I cannot be seen and heard because I don't know if I'm going to say anything that.
Oh my gosh! And they were seeing you the whole time. They were seeing you.
They were seeing me, and they were hearing me, and they thought that I had something important to say.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, because of that advocacy, I became a teacher, so I became a teacher, and here's the other thing, Kate. When I say I wasn't very forthcoming, like that's what I'd go back and change. If I could talk to younger Wezi, I'd be like, you need to be comfortable in your voice and know what's good for you and speak to that, and to don't be afraid to share your preferences and your needs, because you can't just like wait for things to happen around you.
Even though they did, they did though.
Even though they did, because this is why these opportunities did end up happening for me. I was so afraid of saying the wrong thing, or like just I didn't want the spotlight. Never wanted the spotlight. It scared me. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to do things that I'm very passionate about, and I'm going to try to be the absolute best. I'm going to compete with Wezi. Like, I want to be the absolute best I could be at this thing that I have committed to. And that was teaching these students. I was just like, I don't care what it takes, but every kid in my class is going to have a success story. And I had a little note on my desk of like a quote about what is in my control in this classroom to remind me, like, if you've got an ego, like, keep that in check.
Right.
If you need to apologize to a student because you made a mistake, you apologize to the student because you made a mistake. If you need to go call a parent because you didn't handle a situation, so while you need to go, but also, like, I held myself to a very high standard, and I held my students to a very high standard, and I wanted them to have the trust that I wanted to have myself, if that made sense. So I was very, very passionate about what I was doing. I was excited. Any opportunity to do PD or to learn or to improve, I was doing it. I was always a student when I was teaching. I was always taking some class. And then I remember doing 1 year, I did, there was a professional development offering on the PSYOP model, and it was like 5 full days over a couple of months. And the presenter announced that she was going to be stepping down from being a trainer. I was like, I didn't even know that was a full-time job. I didn't think anything of it. And then one of my colleagues, two of my colleagues who were with me in that, by the way, who would ask me, they were just like, hey, we're going to be doing this PD. You want to do it with us? I was like, sure. So I did it with them. And I was also getting my TESOL certification at the same time, because I was just like, I've got English learners in my classroom. I don't want to, I worked with English learners before, but I want to like formally be certified that I can work with English learners. And so, and multilingual learners. So then they were just like, hey, Wezi, you should consider that position, since the trainers, it was like, to me, it was just like words in the sky. And then little did I know, I was asked to like apply for this position, and I became a trainer, and I was not a team lead. I was not assigned to any committees to lead.
Just like plucked out of the classroom and said lead.
I was like, it was, but again, that was one of those situations where, when I talked to my principal about it, like, she had seen me often. She was hands-on. The assistant principals were very hands-on, and they'd seen me about it. And I interviewed for it, and the director was a new director, and she said, hey, we're going to be new together. And then she was just like, by the way, you're the only person who's interviewed for this position. She was like, you're the only person who's interviewed for this position. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to repost it.
Wait, that doesn't mean you got it right away?
No. This was before the interview started. This is what they're telling me before the interview.
Oh my God.
They said, so we're reposting this interview, this position, but if our interview goes well with you, and we see you, we go in and visit and do whatever we need to do, they're just like, then you got the job.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what? But anyway, I became an instructional coach, and I was just like, I gotta figure this.
Yeah.
I gotta figure this shit out. Like, okay, now we'll do the coaching thing.
And there's not really a place to like figure it out, right? Like, it's on the job.
No, but I did have a really good partner. Okay. And she was somebody, like, she and I are still very close friends to this day. She went out on maternity leave, decided to stay out for a while, got a new partner. She and I are still amazing friends to this day. Like, the three of us actually just recently had lunch together. This was years and years ago. And I found my pocket, like, as an instructional coach. And that was something I was just like, okay, if I'm going to be an instructional coach and I'm going to be facilitating and I'm going to be standing up and delivering, I want to be the best I could possibly be. So I was like, again, it was like that, like, who are the people who I'm serving, and who do I need to be for them, and how can I work on that? And so my journey up until this point is constantly those stories. It's like, after that, I spent a lot of time working with the Title I schools. I was like, I did some school principalships, and one of the schools was just like, hey, our technology coach is leaving. We really would like we enjoy how you work with our stuff, and blah 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 blah. And at that time, I was actually studying. I was in grad school again for my EBS. And this was my second time in grad school. And I was working on my third certificate.
My gosh.
And I taught my grad school, my dean, he was actually overseeing technology in instructional tech in Fairfax County. And so I was just like, I didn't actually consider this for myself, so what are you gonna think, And he really encouraged me into it. And so I was just like, oh, okay. And now I'm in high school.
Wow.
Being a tech coach in high school. But the previous coaching job was actually an instructional facilitator position for the Office of English Learners for the entire district. So that's why I worked in a lot of schools, because we were working with Title III funds on that programming. And then I went into the instructional of education, the Office of Instructional Education Technology, amazing leadership there. And then the principal at the school where I was working, he was, like I said, I've had lots of great leaders. He was fantastic. And he was super passionate to just make sure that we're meeting the needs of all these students. Over 70% of them came from non-native English-speaking homes. And we are serving this community. And so we were doing a lot of culturally responsive work. And so then there was this position that opened up to be a culturally responsive instruction facilitator.
And you got that.
And I was asked that because we were already doing that.
Yeah.
There was an in-house liaison position. So naturally, I just took that on. And that's how I ended up working with the administration office. And then they were like, hey, we've got a formal position that's opened up. Once you have it, got into that. Then I went to that, became an instructional facilitator again for the district, but in the Office of Culturally Responsive Instruction.
That's amazing.
And we were working under equity. And then the specialist for that office, or the supervisor for that office, got a new job. The specialist became the supervisor, and she was just like, I want you to apply for the specialist.
Oh, stop that.
But I did have I already had my admin credentials. I'd already been doing a lot of school leadership work up until that point. And ended up doing that. And so, it's
over how many?
Where does this
over how many years? Because it just
this is over 15 years.
So this was
15 years. Yeah. 15. This is a 15-year EDU journey before coming to Adobe, and
So did you come from that culturally responsive, the Office of Cultural? What did you call it? The Office of Cultural Responsive.
Culturally responsive
instructor.
Yeah.
Did you come from that to Adobe?
So I came from.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And the way that I came from that to Adobe, it was a leap because I okay. So when I became a tech coach, again, I was like, oh my God, I'm a tech coach. I need to be the best I can possibly be because I haven't done this job before. I mean, I've been doing coaching. I know coaching and facilitation, like that I can do my sleep these days, but it's the edtech world has always been just part of what I'm doing, but not a focal point of what I'm doing. So I was doing all the learning I could do on my own. Any district PD that we had, I was sitting in the front row. The first full day PD that we had for all the district tech coaches in our division, I sat in the front. They had a trainer come in to speak to us about Hyperdocs and Google integration. And this trainer was also talking about Adobe Spark.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm sitting in there, and the trainer, as they're doing their training, they're telling their story about how they came to this work and how they work with English learners. And that's been their focus, and this is how they've been reaching their students. And I was so fascinated. I was just like, I need everything this person said is what my school could use, because I want to support my school. So I stayed after, and then the specialist in that department said, hey, I actually want you to meet with this person who came and did this training. So we connected, and that person's name happened to be Tanya Abrith.
Oh my God, of course.
Of course. And she and I tag team to support our leadership staff at the high school while I was a tech coach.
Got it.
Fast forward a couple of years, and now I'm in central office, and she calls me.
Oh my gosh.
And we reconnect over it, and neither of us had forgotten that connection that we had over the work because we were so in sync in that work. And so
that does not happen with everyone.
It was just it doesn't happen with everyone. what I was seeing in her, she was seeing in me. Like, we both had this shared passion of like, how can we be better for our communities? You
Yeah.
know, like how can we leverage these tools that are now at our fingertips to do that? Like, how can we get people to be excited about the learning experiences? And so we just connected after that. And so I came to work at Adobe. I applied to work. She told me, hey, you should apply to work at Adobe. So I did. Every person I interviewed with was just was like I just felt like we were having, you know, like a dinner
Yeah, it was
conversation.
easy. Yeah.
And I'd never met these people before. It was easy. It was like we were so aligned in what we were passionate about. And so when folks ask me, you know, like what did you do to
Yeah.
get here? How did you, I was just like, I say the same thing. I'm just like, literally, I've always been very passionate about the work that's been in front of me, about how I can do the best I can possibly do to serve the community directly in front of me. And I honestly had tunnel vision every time while I've been doing that, because I'm just like, this is my focus, and I want to take full advantage of this opportunity that I've been given. And I want to serve. I do. I feel like a defining quality of a good leader is you make people around you better. So if people aren't coming around me and feeling better off for it, then like I need to go be doing something else. So that's been it. It's just like I just happened to be doing things that, well, I mean, obviously there's a lot of intention in the work that I'm doing. When I say happen, it's just like my passion was seen.
Yeah.
The work that I was doing was seen, not because I was blasting it from the rooftops, but because I've been a collaborator. You know, I've always been working with teams and with other people, and like, how can I get this resource for over here? And you know, how can what do I need to learn so that I can bring it back and help improve the conditions of this community? And so like you have to liaise and you have to network and you have to connect with people. And so that's just kind of been it. That's been my MO.
Even though it didn't always
got me visibility,
and it
every
didn't
time.
always come easy. I mean, that part of your story is not to be forgotten. Like your intentionality, your work on that, like you say tunnel vision, but my God, laser tunnel vision. I mean, it's so inspiring. And I think about like, I mean, again, going back to like what this is even, what we're even trying to do with the podcast and with these stories. It's like, one, it's to make sure that teachers that feel alone remember they're not, right? Like, and I think so much of what you shared is so, it can help other people feel less alone, or like, yeah, like I had a hard time. I could never even imagine like standing up in front of people. It's like, well, neither could Wezi. And like, look what happened when she did, you know, like, look, and that there's, you know, that there's a place for us and there's a place for our passions. But what rings true the most is that you have been living your passion unapologetically and bravely, and that I can feel it through this computer screen. And I've been lucky enough to spend time with you in real life, and I feel it. And so to know all that came to this point is so, it's incredible. And
well, thank you, Kate. And I really do appreciate that, because, you know, it's not always easy to be doing work and not feel like to not know where it's going to take you or what's going to be next, or to have that uncertainty. And so for me, I have, you know, I have failed a lot, and I haven't been afraid to call it or name it and be like, because that to me, it's always been like, this is part of the process, right? Like failing that exit exam was not a small fail. Like that's a pretty significant fail. But I remember also like piloting a brand new approach to PD in the high school where I was working, and it was a complete flop. Like launching that thing the first time, and that was the first time I'd experienced like trying to operationalize something that just didn't land at all, that I had like creative freedom over. And then I had to like go back to the drawing boards and just like, this isn't bringing folks to the table and it's too complicated, I
Yeah.
think. And like, what is going on here? And like, it was a very uncomfortable conversation to sit with my principal who trusted me. And I was just like, yeah, you know that, remember that thing you trusted me with? Like, that didn't go so well. So
Mm.
what? So, and then the question of any great leader is just like, so what are
Yeah.
we going to do?
So what's
You know, it's
next?
like, okay,
Yeah.
so what's next? So how are we going to use that as an opportunity?
Love
Like,
that.
that's what good leadership is.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, it's another data point
Yeah.
to help you improve. Um, so I think that's also put me in a position where I don't ever feel like I really need to
Right.
perform. It's just because I know that if things don't go well, I can name it and I can speak to it. Nobody's going to be harder on it about
Then
it
you
than
will
I'm going to
be.
be to
Yeah.
myself. Like, so yeah, so it's just like I'm focusing on the value of the work that I'm doing rather than like the actual things.
Yeah.
You know, if that
It
makes
totally
sense.
makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's just always served me really well is to just have a value centered approach, because that's an other centered that's like it's a service centered approach
Yep.
to the work that I'm doing, and that's why I'm passionate about it. And I once read an article just before I started my teaching career that resonated with me, and it was calling out a generational perception for millennials at the time that was saying, I think a lot of us have been conditioned to think that if you're not passionate about something, then it's not for you. And it can lead us to abandon the work that we are doing that can actually become a really amazing gift and something that we can be passionate about. It's like the op-ed was pretty much saying like sometimes you have to give your passion an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
That passion can sometimes just follow competencies that you're developing. Like as a result of me feeling more competent in this thing, I've become more passionate about it. And that's been my experience. Like I wasn't immediately passionate about education technology. Like that wasn't like a thought of mine. But as I realized, like, hey, I have combined competencies that are making this really meaningful for me. Like my coaching background, my facilitation background, my teaching background, my expertise here, my expertise here. The fact that I failed at this and I had to do this to like relearn this. And now I'm like the fact that the growth that I'm seeing is making me increasingly passionate about this field. And I'm going to bring that to whatever it is I'm doing. So when every work that I was doing, I'm always bringing that to the next thing. And so it's not like I was just like, hey, this is something I'm passionate about and therefore I'm going to do it and I'm going to stake my claim in it. It's like sometimes like I didn't feel very passionate about it, but it's to me, it's like, the skills and the growth that you get as a result of committing to something
and writing it through.
Yeah.
Well, and it's this idea like you can't rush passion. And I think that's a challenging thought for me. Like that's what I'm hearing you say. And like, I think you're right. I think the assumption is if you're passionate about it, it's also like the assumption that passion is positive. Maybe passion isn't always positive, right? Like maybe passion is challenging. Maybe, and it's through all those ups and downs, the jungle gym of your passion that you end up feeling like deepening your commitment to it. I hadn't thought about that before, but I think you're really right. And like failing and persevering through that failure and doubling down on it and getting it right makes me more committed, hence makes me more passionate about it. That's
because it's like it's it's almost like it's that dopamine after you're curious about something and you've experienced a challenge for it and then you get to it, and that just gives you like this sense of I can do like what is it?
I can do hard things.
Right?
That is actually my family motto. Tolnais do hard things.
Oh, like I like that. Yeah. It's and one of the comes of the I call it the
Yeah,
intervention that I got in college for public speaking was I remember the conversation turning to, you do realize that everybody gets nervous. Like, we all get nervous. And my dad was just like, yeah, it's just like, how are you going to choose to deal with those nerves, and how do you want other people to see them? And so I was just like, I didn't realize I had any choice in this
God, that's
nervousness.
empowering,
Like,
though.
yeah. So, and then he told me this story about seeing a world leader once, just like by happenstance. And at the time he was working at the World Bank. So they had this forum, and runs into this world leader who was coming out of the bathroom, and they just said, I just always throw up before I have to speak. And it took him to call himself God, because he's just like, this person speaks all the time. And then, like, it's that, like, this is how we see them. And they get that nervous. And so, and he told me that. And so I was just like, okay, I have control over the way that I can show up with these nerves. So I started to kind of see them as this co-passenger. And like, what are they telling me? They're telling me that I think what I'm doing is really, really important.
Oh, gosh.
And they're also telling me that I am human, and that I make mistakes. And that they're also telling me that I feel. I'm a feeler. But that's also a connecting human experience, right? Like, that's how we connect to people when we speak. And so now I'm gonna share with you what my public speaking
I want to
tips
hear
are.
right
Like,
now.
I call them tips, but these are like really like my public speaking savers for Wezi. This is what I do. If I'm going on stage and I am speaking to an audience, I will always wear trousers with pockets in them. Because if my hands start to shake, I want to be able to put them in the pockets, and I want to look relaxed, even though I am like the duck.
Feet going crazy underwater.
And it actually does. Like, if you put your hands in your pocket and you just walk around, it actually does make you feel a little bit more relaxed. So I always wear trousers with pockets in them. I always wear dark clothes because I'm probably gonna sweat if I get extra nervous.
Yep.
So I don't have to worry about like anybody seeing me sweat or like my clothes looking off, because I'll be like, that's one less thing for me to think about and to be self-conscious about. Because the thing that I don't want to be up there is self-conscious. So I'm removing the things that are going to make me self-conscious. It's like people seeing my hands shake, people seeing me sweat. And then there's the actual content, what it is that I'm delivering. I have to feel connected to it. So I cannot, and I realized, like, when that last time that I ran out, I cannot read off of even if I wrote this, which I always do. It's like, I've written this by presentation. I get in my own head and I cannot read the words in there. So I don't memorize, I internalize, because I'm terrible at memorizing things. My recall isn't that great. So I have these like little devices for myself where I'm just like, I want to deliver the message. What is the message, what I'm saying, and what is going to cue me into the order of that message as I deliver it. So I'll just have like little words or bullet points, or like I'll come up with a connection between something that will help.
Do you put that on the slide, or where do you?
I put it on like a little note card for myself. I'll have a note card up, but I rarely have to
it's like making it is enough,
because I'm like, and then I do a lot of visualizing to prepare. So I will visualize delivering this message, and then I also accept the fact that I'm not going to say everything that I want to say. I'm going to miss points that I had planned on saying. Like, I just accept that off the bat. Like, okay, but if you miss a point, which is the point that you really don't want to miss, kind of thing. So I had this conversation with myself ahead of time. And even with all of that, I am still a nervous wreck before these like big keynotes. Like, my colleague will tell you, he came up to me and he just had to be like, wait, I'm looking at my notes, and he's just like, if you don't have it now, you don't have it. Like, relax, chill out. Like,
don't tell me to relax.
And it's like, at that point, like, I actually really need to like chill out. So like I'm okay with somebody telling me to relax before I have to go on stage, because I do need to
take a breath.
I need to take a breath. But I say that to say, that this is something that's always going to be with
Yeah.
me, and so I understand my limitations, and I work with my
Mm.
limitations, and I have also improved through that, like as a result of that, because like what's holding me back is me just being rooted in the idea that this is all about me, and it's
Yeah.
not. So I have to, like, take that part out of it. It's just like, yeah, I might be up here sharing my story, but why? Like, why were you asked to
Yeah.
do that? It's because the people in front of you are seeking
Yeah.
something that's beyond you, and so you are just like a vessel
Ooh,
or a
that's a
conduit to that
very
thing.
powerful image. Ooh, that's very helpful. My
Yeah.
sister once told me, I really appreciate this, even though it sounds harsh. She says, people don't think about you half as much as you think they do. And I'm
Yes.
like, that is
Yes.
actually so helpful for me.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when we're just like, oh my God, did they hate me?
No,
Did I
they
say
hate their
something that,
emails.
they
They hate
really
their
don't like?
emails. Like, they don't hate you.
They hate their emails. They hate their emails. So this is actually something that I appreciate about, like recall or things. Or when I am in an intense situation, if I say or do something embarrassing, I'm probably not
Yeah.
gonna remember it after a couple of weeks. So
Silver lining.
my body's gonna remember the nerves, but I'm just like, it's okay. I won't be embarrassed about that for
Oh,
too
God.
long.
Wezi, you are the best. I can't even, I feel so lucky to have had like an hour to hang out with you and hear, like, just get to know you and like, thanks for sharing. Like, you like laid it out, girl. You laid it out.
Well, thank you for having me,
Oh,
and I don't get to do this often, obviously, so please excuse all the ranting
no,
that I went on.
no.
But I thank you for having me and for allowing me to share some of my story, and hopefully it,
It,
I don't know, it makes
I think
somebody feel
so. I
good.
mean, it's humanizing, and I think the thing about your job, Wezi, and I got to see you in action even just yesterday, is that you might hate the spotlight, but you're in it a lot, and you do it so gracefully, and so to hear like even just you sharing your little tips, I'm like, it's just so humanizing, and it's a good reminder that like at the end of the day, whether you're in the classroom or at a conference or on a call with 300 people watching you, like you're still Wezi, the teacher who says challenge accepted. And like you're going to show up and you're going to slay and the only person that's going to judge you is probably you. And you're wonderful. So, I thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Kate. And I look forward to just listening to the
Oh yeah.
other sessions that you've had. There's so much inspiration out there. We
Yeah.
just kind of gotta look up and find it. And I just appreciate you hosting these
Totally.
platforms to do that.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll put everything in the show notes, my friend. Thank you. Thank you.